Welcome back to This Week in Formula One. It's episode 2. This is the week of the 19th of January, and let's get right into our first story of the week. It is Red Bull's 2026 livery reveal. Now, Red Bull is the first team to reveal their livery for 2026, followed by, of course, Racing Bull's that was revealed at the exact same time. And let's get into it. My thoughts, my opinions, how do I feel? So here it is. Obviously, as per usual, and what we have come to expect with Red Bull, it looks very, very similar to last year's livery in terms of design alone. But this time they've gone with kind of like a glossy, luminescent paint that I think actually looks really, really nice. I like the little Pirelli thing they've got on the wheels. Obviously that's not going to stay going into the seasons because they'll have the soft marked red, yellow, and etc. for the different colors of tires. This is Max Verstappen's car in particular, who's going under number 3, and now he's MV3 instead of MV33, which is actually Daniel Ricciardo's old number, fun fact. But yeah, overall I think the livery looks nice. It's very similar to what they did last year, but I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. I certainly think they've given it a little bit of paint or a little bit of a touch up with the new kind of bluer paint that they've gone for, and the like wide outline around the bull, which I think was not in the 2025 livery, though I might be, or the 2025 livery, though I might be wrong. So yeah, I mean, it looks nice. If I had to give it a rating, I'd probably give it like a 7 out of 10. I think it's solid. I think it does the trick. I don't think Red Bull, like the basic kind of 2025 Red Bull car is bad per se. If anything, I would say it looks really good under specific lighting, but on the actual track and in like daytime lighting, who's to say that it will actually look that colorful, which is why I think this image is more representative of what it will actually look like, which is just like kind of this lighter blue color, or this kind of dark but still lighter blue. Especially in the highlights. I like the glossier look they're going for, so I think it looks nice. I think it's cool that they're going for a different approach this time with their car design. And yeah, overall it's nice. Let's move on to our next story. We have Laurent Mekies on Red Bull's power unit. Now, if you're not aware, this is the first rule that Red Bull is making their own engine entirely. To my knowledge, it's also in collaboration with Ford Racing, whereas previously they were in collaboration with Honda. Honda's now in collaboration with Aston Martin instead of Red Bull. And this is their first year where they are kind of they've made their own engine instead of relying on a Honda engine. And Laurent Mekies has said here, bear with us in the first months, as Mekies is expecting struggles amid challenge of Red Bull Power Unit project. Now, of course, I think it's expected that Red Bull is not going to be able to perform at the highest level of consistency, considering it's their first year with their completely new powertrain. So I'd say there will be their fair share of problems, which I think Laurent is admitting to very early, that there will probably be moments where the power unit just carks it, or it's not as good as it should be, or they need to introduce upgrades to make it better or make it more reliable. I think reliability is the biggest problem, let alone it being any good. Who knows? It's the first season, so it's always hard to tell. So certainly it's a bit of a dark shadow amidst this new livery. But I think the livery is nice, and I think it's interesting to see how Red Bull goes. I think the next like couple of years of Red Bull will be very emblematic of where they will be going into the future, and whether they will continue kind of this domination that they've had in the 2022 power regulations. Personally, if I had to bet on it, I would say that there's not necessarily a lot of hope from me personally that they will be as good as they have been, because it's difficult to get it right when you're making your own power unit for the first time. To my knowledge, I think Audi is doing a similar thing, though I might be wrong there. So yeah, I think it's exciting that Red Bull's putting this power unit project together. It's been in the works for a couple of years now. I think Laurent is certainly leading the team in a good direction, but whether that momentum continues, who knows? Certainly, I think it's interesting that Max has expressed a lot of uncertainty around, like, I don't know, we'll see, who knows. Obviously, you can never count out Max Verstappen. If the car's anywhere decent, he'll be in the top 3. But yeah, I reckon, as Laurent puts it, there'll be lots of struggles, lots of headaches, lots of sleepless nights where they just don't know why things are not going as they're going. But I guess we'll have to wait and see going into Australia. Who knows? Maybe they'll come off the line red hot, win Australia, and just go from there and dominate. Obviously, they're in collaboration with Ford. Ford has a lot of history in the sport, so that should be interesting. I'm excited about that. Yeah, I think Laurent puts it right in saying that it's going to be a year full of challenges. But yeah, I think also that's what brings them together, you know? It's a year of aversion, but I don't think that will put anybody down in Red Bull at all. They'll just have to work even harder to make sure that they can put their best possible foot forward. And they've got Max Verstappen, so it's not like, yeah, they're not doing that badly. But I think Laurent is somebody who likes to kind of set expectations and be like, this is how things are, we're being honest here. Whereas I think, who knows what Christian Horner would have said. We'll never know, but I think it's exciting. I wish Red Bull nothing but the best. So let's move on to our next story. We have Racing Bulls also revealing their 2025 livery at a launch event in Detroit. To my knowledge, this was at the exact same time, if not same event as Red Bull's livery reveal. Obviously, they're different teams. The Racing Bulls is Red Bull's sister team, meaning they're kind of like their secondary team. And overall, the livery is basically identical to 2025's livery, which I think is interesting, because I would have thought they were going to do something different. Racing Bulls has always done something very different. Each time they've kind of introduced a new livery over the past kind of 3 years of their inception. But this livery is their first livery that is pretty much very similar to their previous livery, which I think is interesting. Obviously, we can see some kind of grayish lines and striations there, but all the sponsors are the same. I think it's very marginally different. I would have given their previous livery like a 5. I think I'd also give this a 5 out of 10. It's okay. I don't think the white is that effective. Certainly it is at a stark contrast from Red Bull's livery, but I think it's okay. Racing Bulls had a really good 2025. Obviously they don't have Isaac Hadjar, but they still have Lawson and they have Arvid Lindblad, who's an entirely new rookie driver, so I certainly think that it'll be interesting to see how Racing Bulls goes in 2025. To my knowledge, I also think they're using the new Red Bull powertrain, I would assume. So I think it'll be interesting to see how both teams go. I think there'll be a lot of back and forth working between the teams and who gets it right and who gets it wrong. Obviously, they're different teams. But yeah, captures the evolution of Visa Cash App Racing Bulls as a brand and as a racing team. I really like the wheels, I just want to say. I like kind of the white design they've gone with the red. It looks clean. It's a perfectly okay livery. I'm excited to see what other teams like Haas do and Ferrari and everybody else going into the future. So yeah, that's Racing Bulls. Let's move on to our next story. We have the first Cadillac 2026 Shakedown. Both Perez and Bottas speaking after it. As Sergio Perez says, he is fired up for more, which I think makes a lot of sense. They were both able to complete their first laps in the car at Silverstone. So I think it certainly makes sense that Sergio would say that he wants to drive the car more. But it's interesting. Bottas and Perez have expressed a lot of positivity about the project, I think, which is good. You wouldn't want them saying, I'm not so sure about this. So I think it's exciting. Obviously, as he said, I think this is Sergio Perez saying, today was a really, really an amazing day. Everyone should feel incredibly proud to complete our first laps as a team. Of course, getting your new car going, getting it working, not have any problems, getting it around the track is a massive achievement, especially for an entirely new team that's not relying on any other previous work. So massive congrats to Cadillac. I think that's really cool. Obviously, they also unveiled their special Shakedown livery, which we will get into in a second if I have a photo of it, which is not their final livery, that's to come. But yeah, they've both just expressed that they're excited. They think it's positive. They're cool. And they just want to get back in and get more mileage going into Australia and more testing and F1 testing in February. So yeah, it's exciting. Obviously, there is a penalty that Bottas carries over that I will talk about in a little bit as we talk more about Cadillac. And yeah, it seems like they're fired up. They're ready to go. Moving on. Here we have kind of their new Shakedown livery first look. That's a good photo. This is, of course, their testing look in a similar vein to the McLaren camouflage look that McLaren did last year during testing. This car, I talked about this last week, but this is, that's a terrible photo, but you get the idea. This is in a similar vein to their kind of testing look livery, and overall I think it looks nice. This was at the Barcelona Motor Show. It's got all the names of the engineers on it, which I think is extremely cool, and all the founding members of the team on the cone, which looks great. Shout out David McCohen. Shout out David McCohen for the footage. And yeah, it looks nice. I think it's a little bit of a shame, in my opinion, that both Cadillac and Audi are kind of going for that grey look, because I would have loved to see more color in the sport. It'll make those cars very, very, very hot as well, because black brings in sunlight and makes things hotter. So I'll be curious to see what they decide to do with their final livery, because otherwise these cars are going to be very, very warm, because black absorbs heat and sunlight better than other colors do. So I'll be curious to see what kind of approach they do. If I had to guess, they'll kind of go for more like a black, grey, white kind of look. Obviously there's a lot of white around the actual engine bay, which I think makes sense considering you want to keep the engine as cool as humanly possible. Obviously aerodynamics will do that as well, but compared to something like the Ferrari, which is completely red, this car will probably run a lot more hot, which is not always a positive. This is of course all speculation and guesstimation on my part. But yeah, I think it's exciting. I think the car looks good. I think it's really cool. Moving on to Damon Hill slamming ridiculous, now he posted this on his Instagram, ridiculous Valtteri Bottas Australian grid penalty. Now if you're not aware, Valtteri Bottas has a 5-place grid penalty to serve from the end of his from the end of 2024, where he crashed into, I think, one of the kick Saubers, if I'm not wrong. And because of this, he has a 5-place grid penalty to serve going into the Australian Grand Prix, which I certainly would agree with Damon Hill in saying it's a little ridiculous considering it's been a year and a bit since this penalty, but Formula One and the FIA is always very serious about penalties, and a penalty is a penalty. So I can appreciate why they would want to kind of crack down on that and be like, no, this has to be served. Because if they waive this penalty and say, it's fine, then it brings into question future decisions and past decisions and all of that. So I kind of understand the perspective, though I think it's a little bit of a shame, because it certainly suggests that Bottas will be towards the bottom of the grid, because who's to say that, there we go, it was with Kevin Magnussen in the Haas. Okay, yes. It certainly brings into question whether Bottas will be anywhere near the middle, let alone the front of the grid, especially considering it is Cadillac's first race. So I think it's a little bit of a shame, though obviously a penalty is a penalty. It is ridiculous, but the Formula One is pretty serious with this kind of stuff. Next story, let's talk about Jack Doohan really quick. I just saw this out of the corner of my eye and I want to talk about it. Obviously we know Jack Doohan left Alpine recently, I think earlier in the week. Jack Doohan has parted ways with Alpine as their reserve driver, which I think is the right decision, because Alpine they're in their own situation right now. And he's going to race in Super Formula, which is exciting, in one of the teams, and he's on the verge of joining Haas as a reserve driver. Yeah, I mean, as an Australian, obviously I wish Jack the best. He was done absolutely dirty in 2025. As he was very much given the boot and then just never given a chance to shine because of what Alpine did. So I wish Jack nothing but the best. So yeah, I mean, we know that Jack he's in Super Formula now, which is exciting. It certainly keeps him within the contention to get a possible Haas seat in the future if Esteban Ocon decides to take a back step, or if Behrman decides to go to Ferrari in 2027. Maybe that could open a way for Jack Doohan to come into the fray. And certainly because we went from 3 Australians on the grid to 1, I would love to see Jack re-enter the fray. But it's a lot of ifs and buts and whens, and who knows what will really happen if Oliver Behrman decides to make the move to Ferrari, which I personally believe would make a lot of sense going into 2027. But yeah, next story, that's Jack Doohan. Obviously we know that Aero Jesus himself, Adrian Newey, is currently leading the Aston Martin team, and Damon Hill believes that Adrian Newey's knack for exploiting new regulations could help spring a surprise for Aston Martin. And I would say I agree. I think obviously we know Adrian Newey is probably the best technical mechanic on the grid from an aerodynamical perspective. And I think it's not a surprise nor safe to say that Aston Martin in a few years' time, if not next year, will be one of the best cars on the grid. Obviously they have a great driver lineup that's led back by one of their drivers. Go and watch my previous video on the channel, All Drivers Explained in Formula One, if you want to know my thoughts and opinions on said driver. But yeah, I think I am with Damon Hill, in which I would not be surprised if you could see kind of this changing of the guard where Aston Martin comes out of nowhere as McLaren did in 2024 and just absolutely dominates. Obviously they have Fernando Alonso, who is a fantastic driver. He's one of the best on the grid for sure. So I would love to see that happen. I think a lot of people would love to see Fernando have one last hurrah and really take hold of the reins of this car and get some fantastic victories, if not a possible third championship, especially after what happened with Fabio Briatore and Crashgate towards the end of his career. But yeah, not much else to say here. I think it's certainly within the cards. I certainly would not be surprised. Shout out Lydia Me for the article. And yeah, let's move on to our final story of the day. It is Lewis Hamilton getting an entirely new race engineer for 2026. Obviously, I think it's safe to say that Riccardo Adami and Lewis Hamilton did not have the best of relationships at all. So I think this is a really great decision on Ferrari's behalf, and certainly shows that they are taking steps to try and improve the team, which is a positive, especially after 2025. I'm glad that Ferrari is taking any steps, any decisions at all, to improve the car and improve their team and their side and their squad, and giving Lewis more support in an engineer that he can more easily get along with is never a bad thing. And I think it shows confidence on Ferrari's part. Obviously, Ferrari is not going to say, oh, we're not going to be that good this year, guys, sorry. But there's been a lot of interesting marketing around Ferrari and a lot of stuff that they have posted that has been interesting. Obviously, we know that they're revealing their car in, I think, a couple of weeks now. We'll see how it goes in Bahrain. I think it's great for Lewis. It's positive. Certainly gives him a lot more support. A lot of people have been saying bring Peter Bonington back, and I would love that, but unfortunately that's not going to happen. And I hope whoever Ferrari decides to bring in for Lewis's sake is somewhat better than Riccardo Adami was, though I'm sure he was a perfectly fine engineer. And with all that said and done, that was this week in Formula One. If there's anything I've missed, anything that I didn't cover, leave it in the comment section below and I will make sure to include it in next week's This Week in Formula One. Of course, stay tuned for next week where we'll be talking Haas's livery reveal. I think Mercedes and Audi as well are revealing this week, so lots of interesting liveries and exciting news to talk about, I'm sure. As we ramp up, Shakedown week is soon, leading into testing in the next couple of weeks, so lots and lots and lots of stuff to look forward to. So stay tuned, like and subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell for next week's This Week in Ferrari, and thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a great, wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. Peace.